My cat keeps interrupting me, so I've had to refilm the intro like 5 times. Hi, I'm back, and we have Christy, Carlson, Romano updates, which I did not think that I was going to do, but here we are. And this is getting uploaded way later than I wanted to. My name is Cheyenne, and on this channel I talk about whatever I want. And today we got Christy, Carlson, Romano updates. If you are not familiar, watch my original video on the Christy, Carlson, Romano stuff. Basically it has to do with Christy versus Alexa Nikolas and a whole situation that happened with them. TLDR, I guess. Alexa was a guest on her show. Then some fans had been talking to Alexa because Alexa's very like victim focused. Is what her whole brand is. Some people went to Alexa saying, hey, I let Christy know that Corey Feldman is problematic. My friend is a victim of his, and I thought she cared about that stuff, and she hasn't answered, so could you help me? And so Alexa goes to help this person, and eventually it ends with them all getting left unread. Corey's episode does get deleted. Alexa's episode also gets deleted. That's also something that we're going to be revisiting today. Apparently she's been blocking fans, and yeah, it's just been a whole mess. So if you missed that, we also went over a lot of like cringe Christy content. And you know what? Looking back at that video, because I rewatched it like a month or so after I uploaded it, and I was like, did I have to like focus on the cringy stuff too much? Like, did it even fit into the entire video? But no, now I'm glad I did, because if I remember correctly, these clips that we're gonna watch were kind of maddening. This is not scripted like my last 2 videos have been. Basically, I pulled the clips like I normally do, but instead of typing out my thoughts to make sure I don't miss anything, I wanted this to be a little bit more casual and hopefully a little bit shorter, because it's not like huge updates. There are some stuff that we should talk about that makes it worthy of doing a video. I didn't want to write a script. I've been working a lot. I'm busy. So yeah, but this is kind of what I want to do, is I want to have like unscripted, hopefully shorter videos, and then the longer scripted, more deep dive type of things. So anyway, basically in chronological order of these updates and how they were happening, and like me going back and forth on if I wanted to make a video or not. Like days after I uploaded the original video, Allyson Stoner was back on Vulnerable. It was a Christmas miracle, but I didn't know if it was enough for a whole video, so I wasn't really gonna say anything. I do have clips from that I did want to pull. I rewatched it recently. Alexa Nikolas, I saw a tweet as I'm literally thinking, should I film a Christy update? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll find another video to do, because it doesn't seem like this is gonna be a video. I was wrestling with it, but Alexa tweeted that there was something that she wanted to address when it comes to Christy, like a clip that she had seen. And I was like, oh, is she talking about the podcast with Allyson Stoner that I already watched? But no, it was actually a different thing where she is in front of her Joey Graceffa episode, which is funny because I made fun of Joey Graceffa in the last video for being thirsty as fuck. In front of his episode, his most recent one, she talks again about having problematic guests and things like that, and it's very comical. We're gonna have fun going through this stuff. And yeah, I thought that I might have been going a little bit too hard. I focused a lot on her cringe. And in hindsight, when I rewatched the video, I was like, was this too much? Was it necessary? Sorry if you can hear my refrigerator, it makes weird noises. But after like kind of seeing how this has continued to play out, no, I don't really regret it that much, actually. I have not seen these clips in a while. I pulled them a couple weeks ago because I was gonna film a couple of weeks ago, but I've been really tired. Like the other night, I fell asleep at 8, and then a couple of days before that, my manager was gonna text me to see if I could cover a shift the next morning, but it was 9 p.m. and I was already asleep. I did not see that text until the morning. That's what I'm doing, but things are good. Things are good. So anyway, first we're gonna look at the podcast with Allyson Stoner, and I'm forgetting the other guest's name. And I didn't write it down again because this is not scripted. This is why I like scripting things, so that I can remember people's names and kind of practice how to pronounce them earlier, but I will write it on the screen. Yeah, Also, just constructive criticism for this episode, because I've watched this freaking episode too many times. This episode is that you don't really have a through line of thought. They're very all over the place. Nobody there is helping them stay on track. Christy's trying, but it's not really working. For a podcast, it's not a good listen, because when I was pulling clips, there would be something that they would be talking about, and then they would cut themselves off and like go on another tangent. And I like tangential, is that how you say that? Podcasts, but yeah, it was a little difficult to follow, especially for the purposes that I wanted to watch it, which maybe, I have my clips pulled up on iMovie. I'm gonna watch them. I'm gonna hopefully edit it nicely so that my reactions are cut in properly. I'm not gonna like have the screen up or anything like that. I'm just gonna cut in and out.
Basically, I asked them to come here because Vulnerable has a tendency to run the gamut of our amazing guests. Everybody is amazing. Every single person that has consented to come into these, some of them have been on the spectrum of problematic. Like straight up, I've had like Trisha Paytas on.
I don't know who that is. Lucky you.
Yes.
Bless Allison for not knowing Trisha Paytas. I didn't know Christy had Trisha Paytas on. And now I kind of want to watch that episode, but I kind of want to get Christy out of my YouTube recommended. That would be a great thing to have in the future. But yeah, so like I said, she's talking about like problematic guests. Let's see where she's gonna go with this.
So I basically
no.
I've taken the platform and tried to understand what it was worth. But what I keep coming back to, guys, is what I care about.
Yeah.
So like I was on Z-Way, and one of the things that Z-Way and I were talking about were like this advocacy that it's been a through line for like why I started making content in Vulnerable. Anyway, sorry, not to make this about me. She was like, you need to keep doing that.
Girl, it's your show. It's okay if it's a little bit about you.
Just for context of why we're here all together.
I also didn't know that Christy was on Z-Way, and now she thinks they're besties. I don't know the relationship, I guess, but anyway. But yeah, and I had to cut here because they stopped talking about this and talk about something completely different. But yeah, she is like, I keep going back to like the advocacy that I'm doing, which if you watched the episodes that Allison has been on in the past, you would know that a lot of it is like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to be involved. And I'm not saying that Christy is not doing anything at all. I don't necessarily have evidence for that, but I am curious as to what tangible things she's accomplishing. Like, Allison has the Dear Hollywood thing. They've are working on legislation, which they try to talk about this entire podcast, and they don't really talk much about it. It's like a couple minutes where they actually discuss it, but again, sounds like more of an Allison thing that Christy's just kind of a part of, which again, not everybody can be like the leader of a movement or whatever, but the fact that she ties in her podcast to that advocacy is interesting, especially considering what she's being criticized for. Let's keep going.
I was listening to Allison's pod. Okay, it's called Dear Hollywood. It's all over the charts. I've been supporting it at least as much as I could. We wanted to use this space. It didn't end up being an option.
I was right. And I feel like I kind of broke that. Not gonna lie, not like my video got a ton of views or whatever, but I knew that and I said that in my video before anybody was talking about that. So that's kind of a dub for me. I'm gonna take that. But there's a weird cut. Look at this.
And when Allison created it, I was like, well, this worked out perfect. When I started listening to the first...
Did you see that? There's a weird cut when they're talking about why Allison's podcast didn't work with Podco. I really want to know what they cut out. It's really annoying me.
I was like, well, this worked out perfect. When I started listening to the first...
That's such a hard cut. I had to play it again because it's so telling. But again, Allison is here and talking with Christy, and there seems to be no bad blood at all. So it's like, not anything that we should look too into, I guess. But I wonder if Allison made like a snide comment that alluded to some of the things that we saw Allison talk about in my original video about the pay and everything. And then they decided to cut that out because they didn't want to, because Christy's just like, oh yeah, it didn't end up working out. Why, Christy? In your own words, why didn't it work out? I'm just curious. Is that part of your advocacy as well? But this is what I mean by this podcast kind of jumping all over the place, because now my next clip is going back to cancel culture and the guests that she has on her show and things like that. And just the fact that she like uses the words cancel culture is always very telling when people use that term unironically without any sort of like fine tuning. I don't know. I feel like when people who kind of know more about cancel culture, like there's definitely a group of people that just blames cancel culture and everything, like, oh, you can't even tell jokes anymore or whatever. That's a lot of people. Then you have other people like me, hopefully all the sensible people watching this video, that are like, cancel culture doesn't really do anything because these people still have jobs. If anything, it hurts marginalized people more. There are ways that cancel culture is super harmful, but then people who are simply being held accountable, where it doesn't reach that toxicity, it just gets lumped in with that as a way to escape criticism. But the way that Christy uses it makes me think that she's probably leaning a little bit more this way, or is at least in the middle and not over here on this side where I feel like myself and most people that I know think about that.
When we talk about certain kinds of advocacy and cancel culture and where the two kind of intersect, it's like I really just want to support things while also coexisting with making content.
What does that mean? Is that even a sentence? And they're like, yeah. What? I don't know what that means.
I'm wrestling with it, but ultimately, like, I just want people to know that, like, I'm doing my best. Like, I truly am trying to, like, be a mom, make a living.
I would argue that you're not doing your best. We have clips later here that we're gonna watch that gives my opinion some kind of ground to stand on. Yeah, I guess we'll get more into that. But, and again, like, I'm very fair. It's all the Libra in me. So I also, like, yes, obviously, I don't think their team is super huge. When it comes to research and stuff like that, you know, I don't know. I feel like also hire a researcher. That's the thing, is it's about the research, and your guest is not asking for too much. It's like the bare minimum for having a podcast, being a journalist. Not that she's trying to be a journalist. I think there's a distinction between podcasters and journalists. It's like a Venn diagram situation. Some people are both. Other people have their lanes. But I do think if you have an audience and stuff like that, and just to be a good interview, like if you want to be the best interviewer that you can be, why would you not research your guests? And you don't have to be like hard hitting, asking Corey Feldman all these tough questions, which is what I said in my last video. But when the information is presented to you, which Alexa will remind us of, it's like that was no research. It was given to you. And then you reacted the way that you did. I would argue that it's not trying your best. If that is your best, you know, I guess.
Deal with being in that narcissistic purgatory while having real relationships with you guys, not just parasocial.
Well, and it's tough because if you're giving someone the microphone from the audience standpoint, we assume that you're endorsing what they say sometimes.
I would never endorse. I want to be very much on the record.
Here's the thing about that as well. I don't think that interviewing somebody has to be endorsement. I kind of had an unpopular opinion when Z-Way wanted to interview Nicki Minaj, but also she's interviewed George Santos, and that was controversial as well. She's interviewed Chet Hanks. George Santos and Chet Hanks are the only clips that I've seen of Z-Way. So in my mind, Z-Way is somebody who has them tell on themselves. Like, she did a lot in the George Santos interview. So to me, it's not necessarily her endorsing Nicki to have her on Z-Way. If it was a puff piece, like, here's an example of a puff piece, the Colleen Ballinger Vanity Fair article that was written by some kid that was really, like, misrepresenting that entire situation. It was very clearly a puff piece, I guess, in my opinion. I don't know. Anyway, but that's the thing about Christy's interview style, is when it becomes endorsement is when you're not challenging your guests. There's a way to make it clear that you're not endorsing, you're just interviewing them. An example that I always bring up is Gayle King interviewing R. Kelly, that famous interview where he made an ass of himself. She wasn't platforming R. Kelly. That's not what that means. And I think there is a fine line, though, between platforming and doing something like that, which is, I was going to say, the reason why I stuttered there is because I was going to say doing journalism, but again, I want to use that like with a grain of salt, because I know journalism is a whole other thing in its entirety with its whole ethics and all of that I'm just not familiar with. And when you're not trained as a journalist, or you don't have experience, or you're not a good interviewer, it's a very interesting line to walk. I watch a lot of the H3 podcast, and Ethan, I think in some of his interviews, he's gotten a lot better at interviewing, but I think in some of his interviews, not the ones where he's just like calling people out, like with the Nexium thing and all that, when he had Mike, Jeff, and Tana on and they were squashing the beef, it's like Ethan was still being honest about the fact that he does think Logan Paul like purposefully scammed people, in his opinion. and then Mike just disagrees. You know, he was still able to make it clear that he wasn't, you know, now that he's friendly with Mike, he's just going to throw his convictions out the window. And like, I don't think I would necessarily be a good interviewer either. Like, I think if I had a podcast that I was interviewing people, I would have a lot of the same issues as Christy does too, because I don't like confrontation, and I just don't think I would be good at it. But if I, for some reason, did decide to do an interview podcast, I think I would know that about myself and then try to, again, not that I have to become something that I'm not and become this confrontational person, but I would try and find a way to approach it in a way that felt true to myself, I guess. But that's so easy to say, like, oh, if only you had a podcast that had listeners, then you would know exactly what to do. Okay, so that was enough of that podcast. Like I said, there was barely anything to pull out of it, and that's why I did not want to make this update video way back when this came out. Why I didn't jump on it right away. I also wanted to see if, like, things would change, things would be better. So now we're gonna look at Alexa reacting to the clip that Christy did at the intro of the Jody Graceffa video. How does it start? I don't remember. Oh yeah, so basically, Alexa starts this section of this episode, basically kind of recapping everything that happened, which I kind of gave you at the beginning of this, and then give some new details though. So I did include this part just to get some of those.
So, you know, my first conversation with her, we hopped on the phone. She, you know, let me know that she was bummed that, or she was actually upset that Jeanette McCurdy wasn't responding to her messages or her, like, you know, crew of execs.
Wait, crew of execs? Maybe giving her the benefit of the doubt about research is not something that I should be doing, because you can probably hire a researcher if you can't do it yourself, Christy.
And she really wanted, I guess, Jeanette McCurdy to come on the show or do more action, and was even kind of comparing her to Allyson Stoner's work. It was a weird conversation. Now, when I look back, like, I should have seen the red flags then.
So yeah, basically, Christy is really mad that Jeanette McCurdy never came on her podcast, which is something that I kind of assumed. Because yeah, Jeanette McCurdy's never been in it, and she always gets comments saying that, oh, Jeanette McCurdy would be a great guest to have on. Jeanette McCurdy also told Josh Peck to take her or to not even upload her episode after they filmed it. So I think Jeanette has a good, you know, good gauge on who she wants to talk to, and maybe that says something. Maybe you should look into why, Christy. Reflect a little bit.
And I thought she did care because she acted like she watched the protests, which awkwardly I find out in the interview with Christy Carlson Romano, she did not even watch it.
This does not surprise me at all. This is bare minimum research. And if you remember in the last video, Alexa said that the protest was how Christy discovered Alexa, but you're very vaguely familiar with it at all. You're just jumping at the opportunity for something that's kind of related to what you do, and you're just like a pack of wolves just going at it immediately without doing research or anything, which kind of says to me, like, where's the passion? Is it about passion? Because when I am passionate about a topic, and now I've done a couple of videos, and the topics that I'm researching for longer form videos that are in the can, or on deck, I guess, waiting to come out, you know, I get really passionate about it. I'm researching. I want to know all these things. Christy is just interesting that she doesn't have that same, like, drive, which makes me wonder what's driving her. I wonder. I don't know. You can draw your own conclusions. Because also, this is something that I was going to put in the last video, but the video was so long I didn't want to put it in there. When Jesse and Lily from the Do We Know Them podcast were going through all the Christy Carlson Romano lore from their time with their podcast, because weirdly enough, it's come up a lot back in the day. And I remember the video when the video came out that Lily's talking about, she did like a DMing 100 celebrities video with one of her friends. And I remember that video when it came out. So when they talked about this on the podcast, I thought it was funny. She basically, for some reason, thinks Christy Carlson Romano, and when she didn't do it during the filming, but then later when she's editing, she's like, oh, I should, you know, do it so that I have the image, even though, you know, we didn't technically do it during the video. So basically, Lily sends the DM while she's editing, and she does get a DM back, and Christy's like, oh, haha, want to collab sometime, basically? I don't know, maybe there was another message in between, but it was very quick that she asked that. And then Lily's like, why would she want to collab with me? Her channel, and again, this is during Christy's Kitchen Throwback, her channel was about, you know, old Nickelodeon stars and like, where do I fit in? Joey Graceffa didn't care about that. He was like, sure, let me hop on this, because he's down for whatever, apparently, as long as, you know, there's views involved. Yeah, Lily's like, oh, I don't know what we would have, like, why I would be a good fit. So she didn't even respond to it. And so just like that, from when Lily talked about that, and then hearing Alexa talk about how Christy didn't even watch the frickin' protest that she claimed that she was a fan of, it's just so interesting to me, because what?
Like, they're very prominent things that happened throughout the protests. And when I was talking about them, like about Dan Schneider, like that you would remember, you know, and she didn't at all know what I was talking about. And so fast forward, she asked me to sit down, and I come into the studio and I spend like, I don't know, like 3.5 hours of my life.
And I've never seen the Alexa episode. I missed it. And I wish I would have watched it just so I would have more context. But it got deleted, and I tried to see if anyone re-uploaded it, but nobody cares about the vulnerable podcast enough to have an archive. So I didn't find that. And if you have ways to get it, let me know. But I know that a lot of her podcasts, sometimes they're under an hour. And it just made me curious about like how long are her sit downs with other people versus like how long the actual podcast is, because like, why are you cutting so much out? I don't know.
Talking to her about it, and this was really at the cusp of her, you know, relaunching her show, like after COVID with a set. And it was I think it was a bigger deal for her than I realized it was, because I was just there, you know, never saw her podcast before, honestly. I was there to just get the word out. And boy, was I wrong. And, you know, for her, it was all about PR all of a sudden. I was getting like emails, her asking if my interview was an exclusive. And I'm like, no, your interview is not an exclusive. And I guess she was like talking to People magazine or something. And like, I guess an exclusive makes it cooler.
That's also super interesting, because it's like almost like she didn't get Jeanette McCurdy, so she's like, I gotta get Alexa. Was this around the same time as Jeanette McCurdy doing all that? I guess, yeah, because Alexa was talking about how she was sad she couldn't get Jeanette on. Wow, she's so transparent, weirdly enough. I think that's what it was. She was like, this is the next best thing. And so she's literally talking to magazines. She's like, I got more Dan Schneider info because that was what was cool at the time.
And there were things within the interview with Christy, Carlson, Romano that I just didn't like. And so things had to be edited.
This I thought was really interesting. And Alexa doesn't elaborate, and I want to be respectful to her because, again, this is her trauma that she's talking about. But I'm just really curious about, like, what did Christy do? Like, why did you want it cut out? You weren't happy? I really want to know. But, yeah, it's fine. You know, we don't have to know everything.
And taken out, and it, you know, made the episode come out later. And so when she was asking me if it was an exclusive, it's just weird to think about trauma being an exclusive. And so I messaged her and I was like, no, it's not. And then she's like, well, I think mine's better anyways, or something like that about her episode with me.
She goes on to talk about the summary that I already gave, and she's giving not another perspective, but a little bit more detail into her reaction to being lumped in, basically. And yeah, we're going to get into some of these, like, she's being lumped in with Corey Feldman for some reason, in a way that doesn't make sense if you're Christy, like, at all. And it's just really bizarre. And now I'm remembering that it really pissed me off because, like I said, it's been a while since I've seen these clips, but once we get into the part where she's reacting to Christy, I think it's gonna make me a little angry because she lumps in Corey and Alexa, which is completely not fair. And what advocacy are you doing, hun?
And as a survivor, that was obviously extremely triggering because what? Like, why the fuck am I being lumped in with a person who has these allegations? I did not do anything wrong. Like, I was really trying to get you to do the right thing here. Accountability has to be, you know, consensual. The person has to be willing to get there. And when the person is not willing, you know, unfortunately, you have to go other ways.
Alexa has the best, like, lines like that. Like when she talked about trauma being trending and that became a theme of the first video that I did. She knows how to summarize things very succinctly, very well. Where if like the other person is not wanting to be accountable, like nothing's gonna happen. And I think that's kind of what feeds into the whole cancel culture thing, is the frustration of the people calling it out, of that accountability not happening, because it does take the other person to accept that accountability for the accountability to even happen in the first place. But yeah, considering that Christy has not been able to take accountability in this situation, and the thing that I kept saying in my last video is like, it did not have to get to this point where it became a huge thing. It didn't. People were being nice to you. Alexa came to you personally. It did not have to turn into this, and the fact that it did is literally your fault. And so it doesn't surprise me that she doesn't have that same sense of what other people and the mistakes that they made, and being accountable and growing and learning and being vulnerable, that she doesn't have a concept of that and doesn't know how to ask people about that, because it's not work that she's doing with herself as well. She goes like on, and Alexa's reactions to the background music, how loud it is, are funny too. So we're gonna look into some of the fun clips as well.
You can tell she's just like stalling. She's like, I'm about to say the thing, and it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. You can tell it's like, this is all a lead up and stalling, and she's not even looking at the camera, which I don't know. I usually remember her looking at the camera. I'm getting the vibes that she doesn't want to go here.
That is so true. Like, she's so, like, you can feel the awkwardness when you're looking at it. The music does not help at all.
You know, I've
This
had
music is, what is
mixed reviews on other guests as well.
Bad. It's so bad.
And I've never thought to privatize videos unless somebody has done
This is like when you call, you know, like AT&T or something, and you're like on hold, and you're like, fuck. Like,
Yeah,
this
100%.
is, you know what I mean?
God, I gotta listen to this for 45 minutes.
Totally. And then you have this, what she's saying at the same time. You're like, this combination is a nightmare.
It's louder than she is.
I know. It's drowning her out. It probably was so awkward without the music. I can't even imagine it without the music, honestly, too, though.
I needed to include the clips of them making fun of the music because it is so loud. It's so funny. This whole thing, she's like awkwardly not looking at the camera, and then this music is blaring, and it's the most discombobulated addressing of anything ever. I think she was just better off not saying anything at all and just like full sending the fact that she doesn't care about who her guests are. And then also the next clip, Christy admits to reading comments, which we knew. Like, we know that she's very chronically online when it comes to stuff about her, because she will block people on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, like the same person. And also people who are nobodies. I'm not just talking about like Lily and Jesse from the Do We Know Them podcast, or Alexa, or people that like have some sort of platform or whatever. Like, fans have reported that she has blocked them on multiple different platforms. Like, I've seen that multiple times, and like photographic evidence as well, multiple times. So we know that she's chronically online.
I do read the comments. It's something that I struggle with. I read everything. It's something that I think
Whoa. Way that was said, I read everything. And listen, I understand that. Like, being a child star, I'm showing total grace when it comes to Christy. The perfection, the pressure of being a child star is very much real. And it does become part of you as an adult, sadly. And this is because this was our childhood, right? And so I feel for her here. I understand that when, you know, people are maybe saying something that's not in favor of her projection of who she wants to be, it could feel very vulnerable. No, yeah. Sorry. That's literally where my mind went. But, you know, vulnerable. And it's scary for sure. And accountability can be scary in the world that we live in, because there's not a lot of space for that really yet. And people don't know how to deal with accountability. And there's a lot of work to go when it comes to that.
I do like the perspective that Alexa is giving with like the empathy side of it, because like I've said in my last video, child stars are not normal. Like, we cannot expect them to understand human interaction like we do. Like, they just live a completely abnormal life. Not like you're giving them a pass, but understanding why they behave the way that they do, I think is interesting to think about. But it also shows like, and for Christy, it's like, that means you can grow from it. Like, you don't have to be this way always. This has been my biggest revelation for my personal self, because Lord knows I have been just like an angry, bitter, tormented person, and it has affected the way that I interact with people, how I think people are perceiving me, and then me being on the defense all the time. Being on the other side of that now, I've done a lot of work in the past couple of years to get to this point, but the big realization for me is like, the things that I don't like about myself, those things I don't have to live with forever. They are coping mechanisms and things like that that have developed from, you know, trauma, abuse, whatever. In my mind, by being the person that I don't like and saying, oh, this is why I am the way that I am, it's like kind of, in my view, letting that win, letting that control me for the rest of my life, and being able to like step away from that and be like, I don't have to be this way. I don't have to let this control me. This doesn't have to define who I am, and all of that has been really important for healing. We can show a little grace, but also we can be frustrated with people, hold people accountable, and not like things that are doing. Like, people who don't like me because of interactions that they've had with me are completely valid in feeling that way forever, because that was the experience that they had. Who cares? Like, they don't care if I've grown or whatever. They have their experience. It's not like they owe me another chance or anything like that. So
No, because just to remind everyone, every time Christy Carlson Romano would be called in, because not everyone was calling her out in the comment section. Like, people would send me snapshots, like on Twitter, like fans would send me snapshots of what they were saying to her. And it was like, apologize to Alexa, you know, for deleting her trauma, or things like this. And I see that more as a calling in. Like, we want, you know, people want someone to be better and also have hope in this person.
me and Alexa are on the same page. Did I not say stuff that was just like that in my last video? I agree 100% with what she's saying. And I think that's also why people have their feelings they do about cancel culture, because when you are getting attacked for something that you did, and maybe you're rightfully getting attacked for something that you did, you're going to feel attacked either way. And it's going to take you a second to reflect and have a clear headspace in order to see everything with a clear mind, to dig your heels in even long after the fact, and still not admit even a little bit like, maybe I should have done more research or anything like that. Is just so crazy to me.
And, you know, I wish I could say that it made me feel better in the sense where I was not the only person, you know, being blocked like this shamelessly, but it didn't. It actually made me see her in a whole new light, where I could tell that she wasn't allowing herself to accept constructive criticism. And when you're a child star, when anyone tells you maybe that what you're doing is not right, we take it as, oh, we might not get the job, or we weren't good enough.
And yeah, like we've talked about in even my Lily Singh video, constructive criticism is so difficult to take. Who among us has not negatively reacted to constructive criticism before? And so since now podcasting is her job, maybe she just is super sensitive. It's triggering those old wounds from being a child star. Again, this is reflection that like Alexa does not need to be doing for Christy. This is something that Christy should be reflecting on herself with a therapist or whatever. I think we're giving her a lot of grace by extending this empathy and talking about this, not as to give them a pass, but to just kind of, it kind of helps you think like, where do we go from here? How am I supposed to move on as a person who was hurt by this? I think by understanding where somebody's coming from, it can kind of help the healing process a little bit. So I think it is important to do.
Upon turning 40, I will have to really address and stop giving a F-U-C-K. I care.
Okay, sure, with hater, like people that maybe diss you in a way that is not healthy, or just doing it to be mean, for sure. 100%. But you're not talking about that. You're talking about survivors, people that you had on your show that you mistreated and that want an apology, and you're not giving the apology.
Exactly. And that's why I say, like, what exactly is the advocacy that you're passionate about? I don't think it's SA survivors. I think you just are using their stories for your podcast. I don't know what it is, but it's not survivors. And I will see even more clips as to why that is as we go on. But not being able to distinguish hate from concerned criticism Again, it's a difficult thing to do, but especially like Alexa was coming to you personally. That's the thing, is like this all happened behind the scenes first.
It hurts when people tell me like, okay, she's not doing enough research on her guests.
This is a Darvo tactic. Here comes the Darvo tactic, where now she's saying how it hurt her. That what people were just telling you and giving you constructive direction when it comes to how to treat your guests, how to properly apologize. And instead, she's acting that it hurt her feelings. And now also shifting blame or like not taking accountability for the fact that she didn't research. Now, here's the thing. These survivors and the survivor's friend reached out to Christy. Christy left them on red. Then when I told, same thing. So you knew.
Again, Christy is admitting to not liking that people tell her that she doesn't research. So research more. If you don't like that people tell you to don't do your research, research more. Or say it with your whole chest that you don't give a fuck if Corey Feldman did this and this and this and this. You want to have him on your show because he's a child star and you have a connection with him or whatever. Just be honest. It's like, you can't have it both ways. The criticism wasn't just about problematic guests. There was also like a huge piece of criticism that she doesn't address at all, is the fact that she had Holly Madison on talking about her story. And then she has Corey Feldman on, who says Hugh Hefner was a great guy and doesn't challenge him at all. And it also agrees with him. What advocacy are you doing? It's not just not doing research, it's also like being fake. Like, I don't even know how to describe what that is. It's being a bad interviewer for sure, but it's also just like fake as fuck and not respectful to your guests who come on their show to talk about their trauma. Like, it's another example of it. And it's completely just like not addressed at all or apologized for or anything. And I think that's egregious.
Wrong to a minor. For me, my biggest issue is basically protecting kids.
So you don't care about the adult survivors. You see what she did right there? Okay, but you have to remember, there are reported survivors that are adults, and this is so not okay that she disregards the adult survivors, and where she draws the line personally is children. And it's like, but you didn't draw the line there either, Christy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you're now finding out where exactly her advocacy lies, and it's protecting kids, which is why it's so focused on like child stardom and whatever. But then Alexa is about to bring up a really good point about how, no, you're still not. So she can explain it better than I can.
Because in the article that I sent you when you left us all on red, had that snapshot in it. And you still didn't do anything when it was children. On top of it, the child star who shared their childhood trauma on your show, you delete, you block, and you don't apologize, and you show zero accountability. And you're like, come on. This is, BS.
Exactly. It's literally just a way for her to like avoid taking accountability. I thought it was very smart of Alexa to phrase it in the way that she did about how like, well, I was telling you about my childhood trauma and you still didn't care about that. And like there was a screenshot of Corey Feldman saying like something about a girl being 16 or something like that, like a child. So like clearly, no, you don't. That's not what you're advocating for either. Her viewers that don't know what she's talking about are not gonna really see anything wrong with that statement either. And it's just, yeah, I forgot how angry this made me. And it's about to get worse because I don't know if this next clip is it, but we'll see.
You gonna get there?
That sort of informs a lot of the decision making on why I would privatize a video or take down a piece of content, which I have done for 2 celebrities that were Disney and Nickelodeon stars on my YouTube. And I guess I don't need to say their names, but I personally
say my name.
Feel like while this is
no, don't do a sly. That was like so sly. She's like, I'm not gonna address this person. It's like, what's the point of all of this if you're not gonna address the reported survivors that you left unread, etc., and the person that asked for an apology, that went on your show, spent hours of their life being vulnerable and sharing their childhood trauma with you, and now it's just a Nickelodeon star that you deleted. This is so not it. What is this? This is not accountability. No, this is not an apology. This is not even really necessarily kind.
It's not. I think she's like literally just like digging the knife in deeper, and she's like, no, I'm not sorry for deleting Alexa, and like is literally lumping them together because she says a Disney and a Nickelodeon star. And also she says, so my thing is protecting children, which informs what content I would remove from my channel. Not true. And then she says, which I have done in the past for 2 individuals. One was a Disney star and one was a Nickelodeon star, while she's like looking away at the camera. And it's a Nickelodeon star. And then won't say their names. You literally lump in Alexa and Corey when you do that. And you imply that Alexa has something to do with harming children as well in that, which I think is extremely fucking inappropriate when Alexa was on your show talking about her childhood trauma and the things that she's experienced and was a victim of as a child. So, can I flip the camera off on YouTube? Is that allowed? It's not like I'm monetized anyway, so I don't care. I forgot how much this pissed me off. It makes me so mad. The way that she like lumped that together. She has no like concept of what actually happened. It's so warped in her mind. Like what level of like narcissism? Like I don't even know what it is. It's just so baffling to me. Ugh, it gives me so much ick. And her bangs look awful in this clip. I just want to say.
It is also a really great show to have neutral conversations with people who've had really interesting life journeys.
Yeah, her phrasing here is so conservative coded, if I may say that. It's very conservative coded, saying, oh, we like to have neutral conversations here in the marketplace of ideas. Like, what are you talking about, neutral conversations? You saying, yeah, Hugh Hefner was a great guy. I never thought anything weird of him when you've had fucking Holly Madison on your podcast. Literally go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. What? Ugh.
And I create sort of a safe space for people to kind of talk and be vulnerable on.
You do not create a safe space. You just proved to the world recently that the space is not safe because when you power flex or you feel that you're being held accountable for something, you delete people's trauma.
Too much about the ramifications of putting them on the air. I know that there's a responsibility that I have, which will come in time. So, for example,
wait, what do you mean that will come with time? How much more time do you need?
I had the exact same reaction. Will come with time. What are you talking about? You're just saying words. None of this makes any freaking sense.
I do see everything.
You do?
And, I am very serious about creating a safe space.
No, you're not.
To have open dialogues. And I don't believe that
no, you're not.
People should police your content.
I don't believe people should police your content is the most annoying thing that I've ever heard in my entire life when you're talking about victims coming to you, talking about a guest that you had on your podcast. This socially liberal, fiscally conservative bitch. I live in Austin, Texas. Ass. Ugh. I'm getting so mad. And because I'm not scripted, there's a lot more coming through that usually I would not put in a script. But yeah, it's just so annoying.
It's not about policing your content, Christy. This is about not having people on your show that aren't necessarily being vulnerable with you, if you know what I mean. You have survivors on your show being vulnerable with you, and then you have people who have allegations of harming other people, not being honest, not being held accountable for their actions, not taking responsibility, and it looks like it's rubbing off on you.
Exactly. And if you have that imbalance, they're not neutral conversations, period. They're not factually not neutral. Because of that imbalance.
I can't believe the show is called Vulnerable and you're still not being vulnerable.
It's very ironic.
It's so ironic.
Every time she says it, I'm like, wait, what?
I know. It's like, just be vulnerable. Just say, I'm sorry.
It is comical. But I think it's so emblematic of how fake her whole thing is. like the benefit of the doubt is out the window because I saw these clips that I'm remembering how mad I was. And it was these clips that made me want to make this update video because I did want to be less kind in this one. And then I ended up giving her the benefit of the doubt a little bit. But yeah, this shit pissed me off when I first saw it and is exactly why I wanted to make this video.
And why Vulnerable has stayed on the top charts for so long.
She's starting to brag about how popular the show is. It's so bad, Christy. This is so cringe. I'm sorry.
Months and months is a sign to me that you guys are enjoying these open conversations that I'm having with very dynamic people, for better and for worse. But
no, it means that they're brainless and that they just like the fact that you're itching the nostalgia. Scratching the nostalgia itch. I was gonna say itching the nostalgia itch. Scratching the nostalgia itch. And once that dries up, honey, are you gonna move on to the next thing or are you gonna be done?
just know that
For better or for worse, she did not. This is she honestly showed that she's very performative in her allyship and she doesn't know how to become an actual ally. Instead, like accountability is a practice, Christy. And I just want to, if she does happen to be watching this or watch it, it's a practice. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, okay? Accountability is a practice.
And I think that is the important takeaway, but I think it's clear that she's not interested in that at all. I think the thumbnail that I had and one of the themes that I had in my first video about capitalists not being allies is something that needs to be reiterated because I think that's really what it is. Like I said, in my opinion, I think her motivator is money. And I think her actions are evidence of that. Sorry, my cat's playing it with a napkin. Her approach to her YouTube career that we went through in the first video is evidence to that. I think if you want dessert after this video, go ahead and watch her video or the episode of her podcast she made after Aaron Carter died. Go watch it and see what you think, because I was going to include that in here, but I didn't want this to be a deep dive, and this is probably longer than I wanted it to be in the first place. But if I ever wanted to do like a real takedown video, Christy, I could definitely do one. Go watch that Aaron Carter video. I'll link it down below, and you can let me know if I'm being a bitch or not about the Aaron Carter video. My cat is now wanting to play with my arm instead. I think that's everything, and I think I'm done talking about Christy. I did want to go in a little bit more, but I just have not had the mental energy, and I'm tired of seeing her face in my recommended. Stop it, please. It's just draining. It's funny, and the cringe is funny. What are our final thoughts? See, this is why I like having a script, because then I can map out my themes a little bit better. But yeah, it's I think the thing that like accountability is like it's something that two parties have to engage in, and when you have a party that's not wanting to engage with it, what do you do as this party? I feel like you walk away. I mean, in a relationship where, you know, to work on problems in a relationship, you need two people. And if you're with somebody who doesn't want to work on those things, doesn't even see the issues, the best thing that you can do is walk away from that situation instead of caring for the both of you. Because of the way that she addressed this, something's going to come up again, and maybe we'll be here. I don't know. And like I said, once she goes through all of the nostalgic guests, we'll see what she's left with. So there is a documentary coming out about Dan Schneider that I've literally been waiting like a decade, maybe more, for. I remember being in high school in like 2012, and there were like rumors, like the Jamie Spears rumor. There was all this stuff. There's just a lot of clips of like the gross stuff happening in Dan Schneider shows, like on the Amanda Show and Victorious, especially iCarly. And I remember watching iCarly as a kid and being like, this is really weird. And my mom thought I was exaggerating. I'm like, come on, are you serious? I think I will maybe do like a summary recap where we can talk about that documentary after it comes out. It's a few parts, I think. The trailer was a little bit sensationalized. I don't really like how they did like, oh, you want to see who this victim is? You better watch the show. Like, that was kind of gross to me, but that's kind of how those are always. Yeah, anyway, that is everything that I have for today. I don't really know what my next video is about, because I don't know which one is going to be done first. But the next one is going to be a deep dive, and it should be cool. So hopefully it won't take me months to do, but I will see you then. Bye! Oh yeah, so I have a lot of new going on. If you did not notice, my hair is darker. The blonde is not here. It is fading a little bit though, because my hair hates sulfate-free shampoo, and sulfate rips black out really easily. I also got this guy. I had a nose ring about 10 years ago that I had to take out for a job less than a year after, but she's back. And I also, I've done a lot of stuff. I'm in like a glow up era, you know? I just finally am in a really good place and feel like I can rediscover myself and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm doing really well. But anyway, I want to show you my tattoos. They are still new, so you know. And yes, I did red ink because I'm a rebel and I don't care what you think about that. But I got some flash because these are my first tattoos ever. Yeah, red ink for first tattoos. I think I'm kind of crazy, but I just said fuck it and was like, sure, let's do red. But I haven't had too much irritation at all, and they're healing pretty well. Oh yeah, I got flash because I wanted to see how it would feel, because I don't have a low pain tolerance. I'm just afraid of pain in general, so I avoid it at all costs. So I don't really know what my pain tolerance is, but this was super easy. But it's also an easy spot on your arm right here, so. But I think I got them in a good spot where I can like build around it if I want to do more tattoos on my arms. But yeah, so those are my updates. I guess work's going great. It's just a lot, which I basically come home and I'm tired, and my house is suffering for it as well. I need to clean, but I wanted to film, so I didn't ask you guys to like and subscribe, but you can if you want. Comment and let me know your thoughts on this whole thing. But yeah, I guess that's it.